In a battle of MVP hopefuls as snow flutters down to the field, the battle between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who will emerge victorious and shrug off some playoff demons.
Saquon and the Eagles, Matt Stafford and the Rams. Two teams not only battling the elements, but each other to see who will face Washington in the NFC Championship.
Oh, Washington, the legend of Jayden Daniels continues to rise. We know the Lions defense has been banged up of late. Could they set off fireworks in the Motor City?
The Houston Texans and the Kansas City referees. You guys know it's a tale as old as time as Kansas City tries to march on for the three-peat.
Who's going on to Championship Sunday? All the breakdown of divisional weekend here on Sunday Scaries with Buccs McGee.
Oh man, here we go. So this week was a little better than last week, but it didn't start out that way. Um, you know, for you Houston Texans fans, I feel for you. I bleed for you. Kansas City Chiefs fans, I wouldn't be cheering at all. All I can say is just sad, 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 sad. Nutmeg, how you feeling?
For the record, Bucks McGee, I never feel sad for the Houston Texans, but that is besides the point. Seeing the Chiefs continue their run in ways like this certainly does not make me feel good ever.
No, 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 no. You would have felt bad. You would have felt bad. Like this was unreal, unreal. But I guess if that's what you want to start with, let's roll.
There's a certain amount of blatantness that's just kind of like, yeah. Anyway, let's save our juice on that and talk what's super fresh, and that is this snowball between the MVP favorites of the 2024 season. Josh Allen emerges victorious. Lamar Jackson, I'm guessing the last words he wants to hear for some immediate future are 2-point conversion.
Lamar did everything he possibly could today. Now, mind you, the weather was kind of rough. wasn't as bad as it was in Philly, but they had some weather. But the drops that happened today, still catches should have been made. The 2-point conversion at the end should have been made.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the day, Buffalo played a little better, and I give all the credit to Buffalo. Their defense stepped up when it had to. It wasn't the best defense. They allowed a lot of chunk plays for Baltimore, but when they had to tighten it up, they did. And give Josh Allen credit. Stats weren't gaudy, but hey, they don't need to be.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's going to be jerseys burning in the streets by any stretch of the imagination, but when you have likely catching the touchdown off of a fairly good sized pass play in the center of the end zone, almost unguarded, and then Andrews is sitting there in the corner, also unguarded practically, and the ball hits him right in the chest, and he falls over backwards and lets it go. There might be some loyalties drawn in the sand, for lack of a better word, in the tight end market in Baltimore.
Oh no! And you could tell by the way Andrews walked off that field and sat on the bench. He knows it. There's gonna probably be some people that are gonna say, "Oh, you know what? Time to move on from Mark Andrews. Lively's the younger guy. Let's go with him," and such. These things happen. He's been Andrews has been so consistent for years that you would never think, maybe one drop, okay, but especially at this point of the game, you're thinking it's a guarantee, it's an automatic. Well, nothing's automatic, I guess, anymore when it comes to your receivers, and Baltimore's going home, so they're gonna have to look at some things and tighten up. There's nothing you can do. Buffalo just played a better game.
One of our favorite topics when discussing the Ravens is the usage of one Derrick Henry. Not enough? Right, just the right amount? What do you think?
I think, I don't know, maybe the first half, maybe a little more Derek. I think the second half you saw him break off some bunch plays, but yeah, I think especially for the weather, like it was tough. It wasn't like I said, you couldn't. It wasn't like horrible snow. You couldn't see anything. Precipitation was tough, but yeah, I think maybe a little more Derek would have helped kind of soften up the line there and the defense. But we've talked about this. Baltimore calls their offense sometimes in a weird way. I think some plays should have been called that weren't called, and I thought they were going to pull off the 2-point conversion. I thought this game was going to overtime. I thought, okay, they'll figure it out, and I figured what would have happened is it would have been like a steady diet of Derek in the overtime.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen, but at the end of the day, just not. I don't think it was enough Derek, and Lamar did the best he could. I think Zay Flowers being out kind of hurt. I think he would have helped, to stretch the field a bit, especially after some of the guys in the Buffalo secondary got banged up during the game. Probably would have helped even more, but
Yeah, when it snows, you figure the passing game's not going to be much of a thing anyway. So like, you maybe almost think that's almost like a not a mulligan, but kind of like a get out of jail free card if you're down a wide receiver. But considering what the tight end still did in this game, I guess the Buffalo pass secondary wasn't exactly lighting it up either.
yeah, like honestly, watching that game, you saw the way Lamar moved in that pocket. He was great. It was just that when the Buffalo defense had to tighten up, they did. And Buffalo called a great game offensively. They were pretty balanced. Josh didn't try to do too much, and this continues. You would have thought this would have been the game where maybe he would have, finally, thrown a couple picks, fumbled and such, but no, he continues to keep the ball safe, make the right reads, and works within the frame of the offense. I haven't seen him this comfortable in a while. So they march on.
To your point on expectations, I was also fully expecting, of course, to the script too, this classic matchup going overtime. I was fully expecting that to be completed, especially the way the Ravens defense stood up on the goal line, stopping Josh Allen trying to get his third rushing touchdown of the day.
Yeah. So as this is unfolding, you're sitting there going, okay, here we go. It's going to go to OT, and either Lamar is going to pull off a great play, or Josh is going to do something. You figured the league was like, this needs to go to overtime. It needs to, but unfortunately, Mark Andrews had other plans.
um, and that final drive didn't start off too great. There was a penalty. There was I don't remember the loss of yardage, but there was a couple plays that didn't go too well for the Ravens. So like it got off to a slow start, but Lamar kind of shrugged that off and took them down the field anyway. Of course, up to the fateful lack of 2-point conversion. But um, is that kind of a breaking of, despite the fact that they still lost, a breaking of the aura of Lamar Jackson that he was not a playoff performer?
No, anyone who looks at this game is going to see it as Lamar, drove him down the field. It was bad weather. Lamar got him in position to go to overtime, and Mark Andrews drops the ball. That the story of this game is going to be the drop balls and such. So no, Lamar was great. Everyone's going to look at the season as another MVP season for Lamar. Honestly, yeah. I think he may end up winning it. Just even though we've talked about it and everything, he may end up winning it. I'm not sure. I have a feeling he will. But no, I don't think anyone's going to look at Lamar and be like, no, man, this is Lamar's fault.
His numbers were extremely quiet this year. Like, for as dominant as he was, it never felt dominant at any one point during the season. So and his season honestly was better than probably either of his other 2 MVP years.
Yeah, no, definitely, but it goes to show that's Lamar year in and year out. But now he's getting to the point, like that works for you when you're younger because
Mhm.
you're still developing, and depending on what the makeup of your team is, that's great. Now
Yeah.
he's getting to the point now where he's older. You need to win now. Now it's the only thing missing from the resume is a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Is he gonna go down like a Dan Marino?
Yeah.
That's what this is gonna come down to. So, but no, I don't blame this on him. He did everything he was supposed to do. They just some guys just unfortunately, and you feel bad. You don't want to dump on the guys, but miss some catches, and here we are.
Yeah. It's a lopsided trophy case to have 3 MVPs and no Super Bowl ring.
Exactly that. Pro Bowls, all pros and all that. Individual stuff. Yeah, he's good to go. He's either way at this point. If he was to retire, he'd be walking into Canton. Let's be honest, he'd be an Hall of Famer.
Hmm.
But the one thing that he is missing to complete it is a Super Bowl. And I think, I think in the off season, maybe some whispers of, okay, what is this team? Because next year they've got to be, they'd still be one of the favorites. But
Yeah.
at that point, the clock starts to tick. Like, how much more do you have? Because you don't want to wish injury on somebody, but if he gets injured and it's never the same, this and that, like, how many chances can you get? Like when you have the
Right.
opportunity, you gotta seize it. It's got to get done. And his division, those teams are going to get stronger. It's not like he's playing in
Cincinnati will be
like
back.
exactly. You're gonna have to deal with Cincinnati because they're going to turn things around. It's not like he's playing in a bad division where he can, say, okay, well, we're not going to worry about it. We'll win 11 games and still win the division, no problem. Like it's going to be a dogfight. So they're going to have to fix some things up there. They're probably going to work on the defense.
Yeah. Not like our respective South divisions.
Man, the NFC South is elite, elite.
Uh, Over to the Bills. This is interesting to me. Because Josh, he scored twice on the ground, but he barely had 120 passing yards. So he was kind of almost like old school Josh that carried the team on his shoulders the whole time, as opposed to new school Josh, which kind of spreads it around and, despite lack of star power, he still kind of uplifts everyone.
Well, I think Cook ran well. The run game was great. They didn't have to pass. It was a situation where I think they looked at the weather and everything and said, okay, let's just see how it goes. And the Baltimore defense played decent. I'm not, they weren't horrible, but for the most part, Buffalo was able to run. They got great field position, so they really didn't need Josh to, put on a 300-yard passing clinic. They were like, all right, let's ground and pound it. Let's kind of bully ball it and see how it goes. And it worked out. It also worked out that Baltimore made some mistakes, made some miscues, especially that Lamar fumble at the beginning of the game and such like that. Baltimore shot themselves in the foot in a couple places. But Buffalo capitalized, played pretty much mistake-free ball. That's it. Unfortunately, if Baltimore does what it's supposed to do, a couple plays here and there, we're having a totally different conversation probably.
Yeah. Um, you brought it up earlier as far as the Bills defense. This is a unit that we were pretty impressed with early on. Then they went into a lull where we kind of were like, all right, they're giving up 40 points every week. Maybe this defense isn't as hot as we thought it was. Through 2 games, well, I guess you kind of give a pass to the Broncos game because that was kind of a joke. But at least in this one, I mean, is the defense? Do you still kind of have some question marks, especially going
Yeah.
into next week, or is they kind of start to patch things up a little bit?
Oh no, there still has to be some questions. They're beat up. They had some injuries tonight. They've got to come back. They've got to be as healthy as possible. It's one of those things where they gave up the chunk plays and were able to tighten it up. Now, the difference is it's Kansas City. And, you've got, when it comes to, goal line stances, they've got Pachenko, they've got Hunt, you got Kelce. Like they've got weapons. Like you can't let Kansas City march down the field and think you're going to turn them around, at the goal line. Like it's not going to happen. So you're really going to have to look at how the Texans played them. Because I think the Texans played them great. It's just, a couple calls here, a couple or many calls went the wrong way. But they're going to have to figure out how to contain Kelce, because Kelce was the big deal this week. I don't know if it's going to be the same going into next week, depending who they're going to want to really target. But Buffalo can't sit there and give up third and fours, or let them get into short third down conversions and such like that. So this is a totally different beast.
Yes, and unlike that game, which we will get into a little later on, at least Bills Ravens was decided on the field between the players.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean the kid? Yeah, you didn't have the Kansas City refs there. I get you. The 33rd franchise in the NFL.
Yeah, it's like a symbiotic relationship to one of the original 32.
All anybody's got to do is go on Twitter there, and you'll see the memes and all the good stuff. I'm telling you. Mm-mm.
Any weather concerns in this one? I mean, the snow wasn't quite blizzard, but there was snow on the field, though. Or I mean, passing it wasn't too much of a concern, and running didn't seem to be too much of a concern. So
No, I don't think the weather was that much of a neutralizer. It just some guys made catches, some guys didn't. Lamar, like I said, Lamar had that one fumble, and that kind of started things, but they bounced back. It's just at the end of the day, Buffalo made the plays they needed to, and Baltimore didn't.
is the pressure shaping up on McDermott if the Bills can't get it done this time around? Like, are the whispers going to start as far as maybe we need a voice to get us over the hump?
I think it will. I
Yeah.
think at this, mind you, he may get a pass because everyone had said this team isn't as good as the last couple of years of
Hmm.
Buffalo football, and they lost some pieces, so and he may get a pass, and they'll say, well, he didn't have much, it wasn't as good, he had the injuries, so he may get a slight pass, but if they don't get the job done on Sunday, then they really need to look at this team, especially defensively, because I think offensively they're good. Of course, I think they could probably use a real tight end pass, catching tight end. They kind of don't use Knox. Those guys kind of seem like afterthoughts. And I think maybe, the receiving core, I think, will develop another year. But that defense is going to have to get looked at and, see what they can do. But yeah, I think, me personally, I think they have to slay the dragon. I really do. I think they really have to. They
Yeah.
did it once. I think they can do it again.
And it's not like they are lacking in talent in the tight end department with Kincaid.
Yeah, like Kincaid and Knox, like these guys are solid. I just don't know why they don't get as much run in the offense as they should. I think they would be great. You could go to tight end with them. Those guys are talented. I just don't know why the offense doesn't go through them as much. Who knows? Maybe next week, all of a sudden, Josh is throwing for 340 and 4 touchdowns, and the tight ends are the stars. Maybe there's a special book they're going to pull out for this game. I don't know. But, this is what they wanted. Of course, they would have wanted this game at home, but they beat them once. They can do it again. It's just they've got to play clean ball.
A crack in the armor for the vaulted Kansas City defense. What a joy that would be to watch.
That's what we're hoping for.
Let's kick it over to the NFC. Um, wasn't isn't it supposed to be a thing where rookies are supposed to struggle in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's how it's, or they don't make it, or they do their thing, and it's like, oh, next year is where they take the leap, or there's the rookie cliff or whatever. But yeah, Jayden Daniels is not normal whatsoever. He plays like he's a 7-year vet. I've talked about this. The kid is unbelievable, and Washington does not care. They are not playing like a team that was rebuilding. Oh, the lights are bright. We're not supposed to be here. They went into Detroit and said, we don't care. We're going to do what we want to do. And that's what they did.
And it felt like even though Detroit broke blood first, Washington just kept like coming back. Like every time Detroit scored, Washington scored. Washington scored. And then they got a couple fortuitous turnovers where they were kind of playing with the edge a little bit. Uh, to me, it never really felt like, even when Detroit made a big play, and that game really never felt like they were in control of that.
Their defense just fell apart. The Detroit's defense just wasn't there, and at this they were wrapped together with bubble gum and duct tape. Like they couldn't stop anything, and unfortunately, it happened at the wrong time. You have those points in the season where you get injuries, and you kind of hope you can bounce back. With Detroit, it just started slowly at the beginning of the season and just kept going and going and going. And they were a team that could put up 38 points, but give up 42, 45 points. They just couldn't
Yeah, and
stop them.
Scary Terry had a huge game. My momentary brain lapse a few weeks ago was Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz was a big performer in this one as well. And they made a comment during the game that uh, Jayden Daniels is on the sideline and he just like looked unflappable. And they're like, it's like, oh, you're going toe to toe with the number one seed in the NFL, the best team in the league this year, outside the Chiefs, whatever. And he just kind of looks like he's deadpan with no pulse. And it's like, I mean, and someone made the comment that it wasn't just Bo Nix that was an older rookie. Like Jaden Daniels was kind of an older rookie too. Like not by age, but by like years of service. Like he was a
Mm-hmm.
4-year starter, or he was a senior, or whatever the case may be. Um, so it's not like he's someone that should be kind of full of butterflies in this situation. He's played his share of football before this season.
Yeah, played at LSU. Like, let's be realistic. He played at one of the top, programs in the country, for college. So it's not like he's not used to the bright lights or anything like that. He understands. He knows, okay, well, this is my job now. This is what I have to do. And he plays within the system. They don't ask him to do too much. He does basically what he did in college. And like I said, this team believes in him wholeheartedly. That helps a rookie a lot because you know that your team, supports you. He's got solid weapons. That defense is slowly starting to come around. It's playing solid. Yeah, they gave up some points against Detroit, but you know, they know that their rookie's going to be able to sit there and put them in a position to score. So this team has no fear. They don't care, and Philly better be careful.
Yeah, I mean that defense for a defense that got shredded apart like it did at times this season.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for them to at least be a bend but don't break unit against a very powerful Lions offense was pretty impressive in its own right. I mean, like you said, sure there's some things to sew up, but I mean it's not the worst result coming out of that game and into Championship Sunday.
Nope, not at all. So at this point, people use the term playing with house money and all that. They've already played Philly. They've beaten Philly. So it's not like they're scared of Philly. It's not like they're going to walk in there and be like, "Ooh, okay." They know both these teams know what they do, what they bring to the table. It's just going to be who's going to make the first mistake, who's going to make the last mistake. So you give Washington credit. No one would have thought they would have been in this position at all. They're the wonder kids right now, and Detroit's got to really look at themselves and say, offensively, yeah, we're great, but what do we got to do defensively, and how can we stay healthy? Because what's funny is everyone from the NFC North, and that was the big thing. Oh, they could have three teams in the playoffs. This could be incredible, and they all just fell apart.
Yeah, each one of them one and done.
Yeah, no one would have thought that the NFC Championship game was going to be two teams from the
From the
NFC
East.
least. The
Yeah,
NFC least. Let's be real. No one thought that.
yeah. Um, and as far as lesser moments in postseason history, Dan Quinn doesn't exactly have the best track record in the playoffs as well. And there were a couple moments this season where they were a little bit of head scratchers from the sideline. So I almost felt like that's kind of like a goat on your shoulder trying to like shake off that is like when a big moment comes in the playoffs, are you gonna make the right decision for your team to put your players in the best position to succeed? So like I'm almost kind of like waiting for that devil to knock on the door too. But I mean that at least that didn't show up against the Lions. Dan Quinn's keeps riding
He
steady.
he's been through this. Don't forget, he was head coach of Atlanta. Like he's been through this. He knows. He's been in playoffs. He understands it now. I think after going through those situations, he knows better. He's got a coaching staff that he can really depend on. He doesn't have to do it all himself. I think he's a more mature coach, and I think this time, I don't want to say it's probably easier for him this time around in the sense that he understands what the position entails. You know, so
So,
I don't think he's gonna make a bonehead move. He may have to make a decision that may not be popular or something, but at the end of the day, he's the head coach, and no one's gonna question him because look what he's taken this team. This team won 4 games last year.
those those Falcons teams, mind you, that had that very infamous collapse in the Super Bowl under his
I
guidance.
mean, exactly. When you wear 24-3 on your head for basically the rest of your life, this is gravy. He's not worried about it at all. He's like, whatever. He was like, I was up 24-3 in the Super Bowl and lost. So I don't care what happens afterwards. He's walking around with an attitude of I don't care.
It can't
So
possibly be worse.
no, he can't. He was, exactly. It can't get any worse than that. So he's gonna sit there and just say, all right, let's just do what we do, because no one believed they were gonna be here at all. So, and he's got this team believes that they belong, and they're playing to go to the Super Bowl. So hey, if they make it to the Super Bowl, I'm telling you, man, there's money to be made, because I wouldn't doubt it. If they beat Philly, I don't doubt them.
Yeah. And real quick before we get into Philly, I do want to touch on the Lions real quick. This is obviously a very, very sour pill to swallow for not only the expectations the Lions had going into the season, but how the majority of the season went. Like, barring being decimated on the defensive side of the ball with their injuries, uh, the Lions still rolled through this season, most of this season, and were able to withstand most of those injuries up until now. Uh, is there anything with this team that makes you think like they need to pull a shakeup in the off season, or do you just chalk it up to bad luck with the injury bug?
Here's the thing, and we've talked about this. Sometimes it's better not to go, 14-3 or 15-2. Sometimes you should lose some games and kind of figure out what your team's at, kind of go through those hardships so you're battle tested, ready to go. I think a lot of times with Detroit, they were just the automatic. They were the darlings. It's like, this offense is incredible. Yeah, the defense, yeah, they'll figure it out, but they're going to put up so many points. They're so dynamic, and we talked about them in that air too. But no, like this team really needs to figure out the defense now. Let's be honest. Don't forget, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are going to be up for coaching jobs.
They might both be gone.
Exactly. So then the question is who takes over? And if you're doing it from inside, that's great. But are they as good as who they're replacing? There are those questions in Philly.
That I was just gonna say is could this be a reprise of Philadelphia post Super Bowl when Sirianni and Gannon were both gone, and the Lions could be in a situation where now they have to the coordinator, whoever the new coordinator is, especially if it's not internal, has to has to learn a whole new chemistry with all these players that have been playing together for a few years now.
No, exactly. So then at that point, the dynamic's all weird, but they need to really sit there and say, okay, defensively, we did have injuries and such, but we got to make sure that the next guy up can help and support, because I think there was a drop off, especially off your bench when it came to those injuries. And of course, you're not going to keep Pro Bowlers on your bench, but you're going to want to have guys you can plug and play, who can handle 3 or 4 games if you got a starter that's out. So they're going to have to look at some things. And if Johnson's gone, if Glenn's gone, then yeah, this team's going to be interesting. Plus, that division's going to be just as tough, if not tougher.
Should there be a concern with Jared Goff with a couple untimely turnovers in that game?
No, I think what happened was Goff was like, all right, well, this is what it is. It's going to be a shootout. I got to try to. He probably tried to do too much. I can't blame him. The defense is a leaking sieve. Like he's probably like, I got to put points up. I got to put points up. And Washington's a decent defense. Dan Quinn's a good defensive coach. So I probably had some wrinkles that, just wasn't aware of. And Goff went and, threw some picks. Like it's going to happen. But for the way Goff played this year, I'm not going to, I can't blame him. I'm not going to be like, oh man, he's horrible. He's just got to clean some things up. But he needs help on the other side of the ball.
It's the old adage of a gunslinger's mentality.
Yeah, and he's really not a gunslinger. He just has these weapons, and his stats would say otherwise. But if you watch him play, he's smart. Don't forget, he had those games when he was perfect. He was going 18 for 18. It wasn't like, a gunslinger isn't going 18 for 18.
No.
Let's be realistic. That's like a Chad Pennington line. 18 for 18 for like a $180 and 2 touchdowns because they were in the red zone. Like, let's be real. That's not a gunslinger kind of deal. So I think he's solid. He knows when to throw the ball, when not to throw the ball. But when you're facing it in the playoffs and you're like, tomorrow's night, there's no guarantee. I don't have week 24. Like, I got to do this. Because if he can't try to make something happen, you're just giving up. So I don't blame him.
So the other NFC matchup, of course, was Eagles Rams, and surprisingly, this one was a bit more of a snowball than the Ravens and Bills was.
Oh yeah, it was. That game started at 3. By 5 o'clock, man. It was looked like it was blizzard conditions, man. It was unreal.
And I guess this was a game of big plays. I mean, Hurts had ripped off a long run. Barkley ripped off a long run. So I mean, obviously in snow you tend to run, but any kind of surprise to the fact that uh, offenses were able to pull off big plays in such blizzardy conditions.
No, the problem was with the Rams and the fumbles. Kyron Williams fumbles twice. He has a key fumble at the end of the game. What was funny is the Rams really didn't go like fast paced, no huddle till they were down, in the fourth quarter. And next thing you know, they march down the field, score. You're thinking, okay, they might pull this out. They get the ball back with like 2.5 minutes left, and unfortunately, screw the pooch, lose the game. So no, there wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Like in the weather, as the weather went on, you kind of knew this is how the game was going to play out. But the problem was Hurts got hurt. Surprise, surprise. And so then, yeah, they really were a run first team. But with that Philly offensive line, they were just blasting holes open. So Saquon just continued to do what he's been doing all season.
Yeah, our hope, our confidence in the Rams kind of hot streak, their blemishes were exposed a little bit.
They were in the game. They dropped some passes, and like I said, they turned the ball over. Like at the end of the day, I think if the weather wasn't as bad, may have been a different outcome. Like they were in the game. It wasn't like Philly
Yeah,
totally dominated. Like Philly, I'll give Philly credit. Their D line, especially Carter, was great. But then
disrupted.
but the Rams were able to at times find pockets. Once they were able to go fast pace, they were able to shred the secondary. I just don't know why
Yeah,
they didn't start right off the bat like that. But McVay had his thought process, and for the most part, it did work until Williams is fumbling, and some balls that should have been caught weren't. It just Philly had Saquon Barkley. That's just what it was.
especially in inclement weather, you would think that to take advantage of the distraction of that, and of course with crowd noise, you would think that. Granted, they're the road team, of course, but you would think that you would want to run more no huddle and hard counts and things that the offense can't necessarily key on with snow blowing down in your face.
No, exactly. And, Stafford is by far not a mobile quarterback. So, if they weren't able to buy him time, he was eating turf. If that was like Jayden Daniels or something like that, it would have been totally different. If it was Lamar, it would have been different because those guys are mobile, would have been able to stretch plays. Stafford can't do that. If he's got time in the pocket, yeah, he'll shred you. But if he's getting pressure and you're in his face, nothing's coming of it. So that's basically what it was. Once they were able to move fast and up tempo, the D line was getting tired, and they basically had their way with them.
As far as the turnovers are concerned, based on the way you think Philadelphia looked in this one, if the turnovers didn't happen, would the Rams have pulled this off?
I think they would have. I think it would have been a lot. It would have probably went down to the final. Definitely would have went down to final possession, kind of like it did the way the Rams drove down at the end. But I think it would have been close, and they could have pulled it off for sure.
You mentioned before another injury scare for Hurts, different end of the body this time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
is there gonna be is this concern going up against Washington, where they they probably granted we talk Washington's defense maybe a little bit of a question mark, but is Philadelphia going to be in a situation where one hit and Jalen's out and they're going to be in a rough spot?
Very well could be. It wasn't like he was really throwing the ball around the yard today either. So it could be just a replay of this week. So it could be just the Saquon show, but it all depends. I haven't looked to see if there were any reports on his knee or anything like that. So I don't know anything. But if Washington gets a good rush, hits him hard, keeps him off balance, if he's not 100%, then yeah, it's going to be a problem because I'm sure Quinn is going to dial up stuff for Saquon. Like I said, each team knows what the other one's bringing. It's not going to be anything that they've never seen before. So it's just going to be, if they can stop Saquon or at least hold him slow him down, they can win this game.
And it's the rubber match. The first time they played, Philadelphia kind of embarrassed Washington a bit, and the second time they played, Washington had quite the heroic victory.
Yeah, Washington's going to walk in there with house money and not fear them at all. Philly's going to be the one to walk in there and say, we're supposed to win this game. And sometimes that's the worst kind of pressure.
Yeah. You mentioned in the last show that you needed to see a big performance from Hurts to be confident that he was past the injuries. Obviously, they didn't happen, but do you think that was more so just the weather as opposed to maybe tepid play calling?
No, I don't. He didn't look good to me at all. I still have no confidence in him. It just seems like he's there. Like, and they can sit there and spin it and say, oh, well, we can throw the ball when we want to, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if that's the case, at the beginning of the game, they had to start out with a couple pass plays. Goddard ripped off something. Okay, great, whatever. I understand the weather. You're gonna, turn to the run a bit, but he doesn't look comfortable to me. I don't think their pass game is that great. They've got to prove it to me. So if I'm Washington, I'm going to say, okay, let me see what you got. I'll shut down Saquon and say, okay, Hurts, beat me with your arm. Because I don't think he's that guy. I think he's a complimentary kind of guy. He's got the skills. He can push the ball down the field, but I don't think he's thrown for 350 and 3 touchdowns. I'm not looking at. I think Saquon's the cowbell, and Hurts is going to get his numbers off of that. He's your tush push guy. That's all he is. Let's be real. I don't think this season he broke. I don't think he broke 3,000 yards passing this year.
Mm.
I think he had more rushing touchdowns. That's what it was. Okay, Saquon runs the ball. He passes out a little bit. They get to the 1 yard line. All right, tush push. There we go. Woo. There you go, Jalen Hurts. That's great. If it's a situation where you need him to throw the ball and literally get you down, you're on the 2 yard line. Oh, plus he ate a safety today.
Yeah.
So you tell me, if you're on the 2 yard line and I need him to drive 98 yards and I need him to get me there and not Saquon, do I believe he can do it? No, I don't.
They might need another blizzard to get by Washington.
No, if they get another blizzard, they're done. They're toast. Washington, because I think Daniels will be able to handle it. That team will not care. They will chew them up.
So the topic, of course, that is lighting the NFL wires on fire this weekend. The Chiefs advance to their seventh straight AFC Championship game. All 7 seasons with Patrick Mahomes as a starter. They played on Championship Sunday. But this one, let me just ask you off the top, what was the most egregious call in this game?
No, the question is which one?
Yeah, which one?
Well,
Which one of the several?
there's nothing to choose. There flip a coin. There was the mysterious roughing one when two Houston Texans rammed into each other,
Yeah,
and Patrick is below him, just looking at him like, "Hey, what's up?" But
yeah,
the ref literally right there. But yeah, we'll throw the flag because it's roughing.
yeah.
You have the one
Pat,
when the Will Anderson one where okay, and fast if it's played fast, possibly you could sit there and say, okay, it looks like it was helmet to helmet, but it wasn't. Like the way that he came in, no. Now the league needs to figure this out because I think they can pick up a flag on this. I think they stuff like this. Take a look at it because there's no way. So you get plays. Golly, man, like it's just so frustrating. It's irritating. It really is, man, because all these penalties, extended drives, and allowed KC to score, and of all we could hear is all Travis Kelce, incredible, exploding game, blah blah blah, and all that other fun stuff. Like I'm just, and I will give credit where credit is due. I'm not a hater, but like this whole year, and first it started off as little whispers. Oh man, all right, it's the refs, and then of course the overwhelming noise was, oh, just stop complaining. They're just good, yada yada. No, now all of a sudden it flipped. It got to the point where Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are sitting there saying, "You can't call that. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous." And that was the stain on this game. Now, mind you, Houston did not play great either. They had some moments, but CJ got hurt, and at that point the game had just turned on its ear. So you could tell Houston was just trying to survive, but the refs did not need to help in any way, shape, or form.
when the in-game media turn on you, it's got to be a major flag to like. Okay, maybe the referees were playing our hand a little too heavy here.
I'm telling you, man, because there's going to be a point, I think, in this offseason when they're going to start looking at this saying, hey, we got to look at this to make sure. Kind of like when in college, when they can look at targeting to see if it's targeting. Really, I don't think people really care if you take an extra 2 minutes to get it right, if that. No one's sitting there going, oh, man, really? Another 2 minutes? You want to add on an 18th game anyway, so no one cares.
Why are you concerned about making games longer when you want to add a whole another week to the season and play
When
the
I
play the Super Bowl on St. Patrick's Day?
And I know, and it's kind of like baseball. Like I know the human error element with an umpire, if it's a ball or a strike. Like I get that, But when it comes to this kind of stuff, and it's really affecting a game, then it's too much. And when it happens to one team consistently, like how many times can Jawan Taylor, when they move off the line to protect Patrick, like literally like 2 steps before the ball is hiked, to not get called for false start. Like there's all these things that happen, and it's documented, but it's like, oh well, okay. So now I think the country is going to sit there, and first of all, like I said, I think they're going to become the biggest Buffalo Bills fans. And if for some reason Buffalo can't get the job done, whoever comes out of the NFC, that's it, man. That's it, because it's just it's too much. And like you couldn't enjoy the game because you were just waiting for the next one. You were waiting for the next flag to get thrown.
Dare I say, I know pardon the thought even entering my brain, but After we saw the Chiefs Niners rematch last season, we could be destined for the Eagles Chiefs rematch this season. I hope
If
not.
I have,
I'd prefer to see Washington Buffalo for more
oh,
reasons than just to
I,
end the streak.
I would love to see. Okay, does Josh finally get his ring? Does
Yeah.
this upstart team do its thing? If I have to sit and watch, gimpy Jalen Hurts against Patrick Pennington, because that's what he's starting to be, Patrick Pennington, because he ain't really like the ball. Like, let's be real, like the guy throws the ball. I will give him credit. He had that nice pass where he nearly fell down and threw the touchdown to Travis. And, at that point, they anointed him the greatest NFL player of all time or whatever, like they normally do with him.
Like they
But,
normally
he scores a touchdown and it's, 20 minutes of Travis Kelce is the greatest thing, blah, blah, blah. But, I want to see something different. And I feel like if it's going to happen, this is the year.
Actually, to that point, Travis Kelce had this vintage Travis Kelce game that we've seen none of, very little, if not none of, throughout the entirety of the season. But all but 60 yards of those of Travis Kelce's yards were Mahomes yards. So we think it's like, okay, figure out who else you're throwing the ball to. He still has not figured out who else he's throwing the ball to. When Kelce finally reemerged as Kelce, he only had a whopping 60 yards that went to anyone else.
Yeah. Now, I don't want people to all of a sudden say, well, he's got, Hollywood Brown and D Hop and all these weapons. So, someone's got to get loose. The,
He
the
ain't using
number,
them.
the number one weapon you shut down is Travis Kelce because he has the chemistry. That's the guarantee you shut down. Worthy is, he needs a couple of years, but right now he's a one-trick pony. You run him now, mind you, he had a nice catch yesterday. I'll give him credit, but he runs down the field because he's got the blazing speed, and that's it. He's John Ross 2.0 until he starts to do some new things. D Hop, the guy's got great hands, but he doesn't get great separation. All right.
Yeah.
So then you go back and you run the ball with Pachenko because he's a beast. He's an angry runner, and he's gonna beat up your D line. So the question is what do you do? You know, I'm you know what? You put two guys on Travis. If you have to make Pachenko beat you, then so be it. Let it be death by 1,000 cuts. But I'm not letting Travis Kelce beat me because that's what usually happens. The Travis thing happens, and the next thing you know, they put up 20 points, and that's all they need because their defense is solid. Their defense is still solid, but I don't with Buffalo could be interesting. Like I said, I think it's gonna be a low scoring game. And at the end of the day, Travis is public enemy number one. You go with that, and then you see how the game goes.
That's a situation where you just kind of have to live with like the MVS and the Nico Hartman kind of. You almost just have to live with Hopkins or Worthy or Hollywood Brown. You just have to live with them beating you. And if Kelce gets shut down and Noah Fan has 3 touchdowns because Patrick's still on tight end mode, that's just another thing you have to live with, right?
Yeah, but you know what? That offensive line is not good, man. The Chiefs' offensive line was bad against Houston. So what's going to happen is Buffalo's going to watch that tape like nobody's business and probably try to duplicate it. Now I don't know.
No,
They don't have a Will Anderson, but they've got some guys who can rush. So we'll see what
yeah.
happens. Von Miller may have a big game. They may move him around and put him in some special packages as well, but right now that offensive line is not good. So if they can get to Patrick and put on some decent coverage, they can beat them. They beat them once already.
Noah Gray, excuse me. I said Noah Fan before. Wrong tight end, nutmeg.
You don't disrespect Noah Gray like that, phenom, the future of Kansas City, the man who will have the torch passed to him.
Yes. With that defense, I mean the Bills and Chiefs rivalry is a weird one because the Bills always win in the regular season, the Chiefs always win in the playoffs. And is it what kind of, other than the fact that barring help from the referees, this Chiefs team is just not as impressive as years past. What kind of similarities and differences do you see that could kind of reverse that trend, despite the fact that obviously the Bills already won in the regular season this year?
I honestly think Buffalo has that us against the world mentality because yeah, and Josh said it in the post game on the field. He's like, people thought we weren't going to be good. People think we're too small. People think we didn't have talent because a lot of guys left, and they played better than they did last year. They are going to go in. I think they're going into Kansas City, and they're not worried about the aura of Kansas City. Yes, they understand that Kansas City has been the elite for 7+ years. They've been the team in the AFC, and they know that if they want to reach that mountain, they've got to take out the champs. They understand that. So it's just they're going to go in and say, okay, we got to do what we need to do. We can't worry about the noise around us. Don't worry about it. Just do what we do, and whatever happens, happens. And I think they're fine with that. Kansas City, yeah, I think at some point the pressure of the three-peat does get to them, and I think it does mount a little bit. Patrick hasn't been great. That, like I said, that O-line is getting bad. So they're ripe for the picking. They really are. So if Buffalo can't do it, probably the best team, if they can actually survive, is going to be Philly because of Saquon Barkley.
That's wait. Even you're talking about all of the whole Final Four. So
I would love to say Washington, but I don't know because of Spags and that defense. He may dial some stuff up that Daniels doesn't see it. Like, I don't know. I do feel a little more comfortable just because of Saquon. I think Saquon changes the game.
Even with a gimpy Jalen Hurts, you'd still say the Eagles are the best team standing over Buffalo.
Because I think Kansas City, you have to account for Saquon. So at that point, you have enough weapons where I think Jalen should be healthy enough by Super Bowl, right? Because you've got like another 2 weeks, because you know how we sit here and it's media day after media day after media day. The guy from Telemundo's asking questions about their favorite horses' colors and all that stupid stuff. And at that point, Jalen, I'm sure, would be healed up enough where you got Goddard, like you've got guys, and I'm sure they would be able to come up with some things that would be able to stunt Kansas City. Now, and to flip it, Philly's defense has gotten better. Like we were kind of like about their secondary, and they've played really well. I don't know if Kansas City's offensive line can handle Carter and those guys on the D line because they come nonstop. So it could be a situation where it almost kind of looks like when Tampa played KC and torched that offensive line up because they were putrid, they were beat up, and they were hurt. And these guys, for some reason, just can't get it together. And for the most part, they're healthy. So it's going to be, like I said, it'll be interesting. But Buffalo's got first crack at them. And like I said, Buffalo's got the edge. They beat them. So Buffalo just has to look at it, see what they can do, play smart, and we'll see what happens.
Well, Buccs McGee, despite the officiating controversies, it was certainly a much better weekend than Wild Card weekend. Sir, take us off air with your final thoughts on divisional round of NFL playoffs.
Rams, I was there. I was rooting you guys on, but Kyren Williams got to work on the fumbles. I know the weather was bad, but the fumbling's been an issue the last couple of games. Got to tighten that up. But give the Rams credit. No one thought they'd be there. Hell of a game. Lions, your defense, you have an off season to figure this out, but you got to figure it out quick because your division's only going to get tougher. Lamar, hell of a regular season, MVP. Enjoy it. And the Kansas City refs, cut it out. Give me a clean game.